concepts in order to understand any social process and functions and any social problems. And as we do caste and gender and nationalism or tribes in India and others, we will need all these concepts. So one more thing in relation to that I wanted to discuss is this whole idea of being objective. Okay, the entire pursuit of science is to be objective. Now, to be objective in a very, very kind of a simplistic term is not to bring any personal biases into a study. That is what is being objective in terms of a very simplistic understanding of it. That the whole idea is that there are certain natural processes, and these processes will occur the same way in given certain conditions. These processes will occur in the similar way and lead to similar results. Okay, and one cannot bring in one's own personal biases to bring a new result to this kind of things. Therefore, this whole pursuit of science has been to be objective. Okay, and to remove itself from all kinds of religious, cultural, and other kinds of biases. Okay, the science is basically above all these things, supposedly. Okay, now I'll not get into the debates of whether science has been actually historically objective or not. There are lots of debates on this, that whether science has actually been objective or science has also been very racist and sexist, and other kinds of biases have creeped into the knowledge that was produced through what is called as science. But in the context of social sciences, when you are studying society, okay, when you are studying social processes and human beings, okay, the fact that not only an individual human being, sorry, the fact that not only different individuals and different groups behave in different ways in different conditions, okay, but it is also a fact that a single individual can behave in different ways in different conditions, not just in different conditions, but in similar conditions also. Okay, like today, as a person, you may behave in certain ways in an online class, but tomorrow in the similar conditions, you may behave in a different way. Or you may today in certain conditions as an individual, you may like certain things, but tomorrow under the same circumstances, still something may happen to you because of social, cultural, psychological, whatever issues that is, okay, or physiological issues or whatever it is. You may behave and understand and feel about things differently. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that when we are studying human society, like sociology is studying human society, or social sciences is studying, and humanities are studying, focusing on human society, one of the things that we have to understand is that this pursuit of being objective, okay, this pursuit of really use the right results, okay, in terms of knowledge production, because we are dealing with a very complex form of the subject matter here is extremely complex. As individuals, as group, as societies, the complexities are numerous, and it can vary from person to person, from society to society, from group to group, within a person also. And therefore, what is more required is to understand the subjective experiences of groups, subjective experiences of individuals, subjective experiences of nations, to kind of bring the right kind of knowledge, or what is nearest to the right truth in terms of social sciences, rather than trying to be objective. Like for example, if I give an example of how objectivity in society will not really kind of be inclusive. When I say inclusive, in the sense that not take the marginalized experiences into account, one of the best examples that I can give is law or legal institution. Okay, I work on legal institutions, my PhD thesis, and my entire work has been on law as a social institution and gender violence. And one of the things that one can emphasize on is that law claims to be neutral, right? And law as a legal institution is wants to be objective in nature, that it will not be biased by anything, but will kind of rely its judgments on witnesses and proofs and etc. and all that. But a question might be asked that, if law as an institution is neutral, okay, is objective and is not biased, okay, then why has for centuries now law discriminated against different kinds of groups? Why has law then kind of kept up hierarchies in society? Like, for example, certain groups of people cannot own land. Certain groups of people cannot go for education. Certain groups of people cannot access certain kinds of spaces, like temples and other kinds of spaces, mosques and temples and other kinds of spaces. Okay, or for that matter, certain groups of people cannot say that this is violence against us, but other groups of people can say that this is violence against us. How has law done this for centuries and centuries in human history? That said, the more interesting thing about law as an objective institution can be questioned in certain ways, that do the judges and the lawyers and the forget about judges and lawyers, we'll come to that. Does the law of a country or of a society or of a community reflects the cultural norms, the social norms of that society, or is always beyond and above it? Not necessarily. Often, law is an institution which largely reflects the social cultural conditions. For example, if you say, for that matter, if you say, how, for to give an example to me, then one can talk about, for a long time, women did not have rights to guardianship. Women were not seen as the natural guardian of a child under consideration of separation or divorce or other kinds of issues. The guardianship, the fathers was the natural guardian of the child for a long time. It was due to the efforts of the feminist movement that mothers also became the natural guardians of. In many countries, still mothers are not the natural guardians of the child. So how does this reflect the social cultural conditions, or is it an objective law which says that only father can take care of a child better than a mother, and therefore on divorce or separation or any kinds of issues in a marriage, the child goes to the father as a natural guardian? So what I'm trying to bring in here is that through the example of law as an institution, I'm trying to say that when you're doing social sciences or humanities, or you're trying to understand society or social processes, this idea of being neutral, okay, that we have to study society as a neutral beings, that knowledge that is produced regarding social society, the research that we are doing regarding society should be made in an objective condition and in neutral conditions, is somewhat of a myth, because as human beings in human society, we can only pursue objectivity but can never reach it. Okay, and not necessarily this pursuance of objectivity is a right way of approaching understanding of society. That is where the idea of subjectivity comes in. That maybe if you take subjectivities into account in social processes, in social understanding social problems, maybe then we can produce better knowledges rather than being objective. I'll give you another example. If I'm going to look at students, depression of students, or student suicides, okay, or young people suicide in this country, if I say that I have to do an objective research and I will not take into account any kind of subjective influences or personal experiences, or the pressures that students go into, because this is what the course says, there's an entire world to kind of compete with, and this is how the big universities put pressure on students to work on. And that is where we have to be objective in understanding that students depression is not because of the pressure that the educational institution is giving, but or the parents are putting on their children or anything like that, but it is because they are not able to cope because they don't have intelligence, they don't want to work hard, they can't cope with it because they don't have it in them, etc. So often what happens is this is seen as objective, this narrative is seen as objective, that see, the syllabus is this, the work timings are this, the entire world is doing this, So, students in India also have to do this to be at par, and therefore, whoever is failing because they don't have it in them. Is this an objective analysis, or is subjectivity when it is taken into account? For example, maybe students are pressurized into certain kinds of education. Maybe students want to do something else and not want to do this. Maybe students have different capabilities and different ways of understanding things, and they can understand things better in different kinds of situation, different modes of teaching, rather than one mode of teaching, one mode of exam. Okay, or maybe students come from various backgrounds and they don't understand the language of teaching, that is English. Okay, and maybe we should put some more effort into kind of accommodating this kind of students into our thing, and many such things. Okay, maybe there is a family issue in the student's house which is impacting his or her performance, and therefore this person is not able to uh, uh, take those courses and exams in a way that others can do it. Okay, or the person is feeling alienated in an environment of IIT or NIT or anywhere in universities, etc., and is not able to cope with the larger environment, and therefore is not performing, along with the fact that some may not be hardworking, some may be not interested, some may be just thinking, okay, I will pass it anyway. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you are understanding social processes, maybe this whole idea of being absolutely neutral and objective doesn't work. Okay, what happens is that if you take subjectivities into account, if you take subjective experiences into account, like I was telling yesterday about standpoint approach and intersectionalities, maybe we will, if we do research and study through that of a social problem, we will come with an extremely rich, informative, and better narrative, better solutions, better understanding of the issue, rather than telling us, see, we will not be biased. Because as human beings, we bring our subjective experience into the study. We bring our subjective experience into the classroom. We bring our subjective experience into the legal institutions or police stations or court or anything for that matter. Okay? And therefore, the judge doesn't keep his subjective experiences of family and gender and class and caste outside his courtroom, in the family or at his home or her home, and come to the courtroom. Maybe often the judge brings his or her experiences into the courtroom, his or her ideas and belief systems into the courtrooms, and makes judgment based on that also. Okay, maybe you as students come to the classroom not keeping your ideas and belief systems and norms and values at your home and attend this lecture. So when I'm telling you certain things, you may be not be agreeing or agreeing with me depending on your family condition, your social conditions, your cultural conditions, your food habits, your ritual habits, etc., etc. Okay, so that is what I'm trying to emphasize here, is that when we are understanding caste, when you're understanding gender, when you're understanding social problems, beginning with the problem of caste system to inequalities to poverty to migration to the idea of students issues of students, or to the idea of access to healthcare or our nationalism or anything for that matter, maybe we have to understand that subjectivities matter, and we do not keep our subjective experiences outside that and try to understand it. We bring it to understand it. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell in terms of idea of subjectivity and the politics of knowledge production. In terms of politics of knowledge production, what I wanted to emphasize, and I'll come more when I'm doing ideological approach and book view, when I'm doing caste and all that, I just want to tell you here is that the method we use to produce knowledge, the method that we use to kind of, the people who we went to produce knowledge, in social sciences or humanities also matters in terms of what kind of knowledge got produced. Okay, like yesterday I was giving you the example of transportation system and men and women's experiences. If you say that I'll be objective, I'll be neutral, I will not go choose men and women, but randomly select population in a street. People are standing in a public street. I waiting for buses and cabs and trains, etc. We will just go randomly select people and kind of based on that experiences talk about communication systems in a city, then maybe you will land up with more male experiences than female experiences. Given the fact that men occupy public spaces more in number, more often, and also loiter in public spaces more to kind of, for you to go and talk with them, sit with them, and ask questions. And maybe you will not, in your random selection and not very subjectively kind of biased selection of going and asking maybe equal number of men and women, okay, or in that sense going and asking women because they have more experiences about public systems than that of men in terms of certain special experiences, we will land up with a knowledge system which seems to be neutral because you were not biased, you just went and picked random people. But in your random selection, maybe there was this bias because there are many more number of men present in a public space at each point of time in a day or a night, so it's more, okay, to kind of you go and select people. And maybe that method itself will bring the bias to the knowledge because you will not land up with more women and their experiences and therefore believe that sexual harassment or reservation of seats or public toilet systems in bus stops, etc., or from kind of a private space to feed children, okay, and all those kinds of things is necessary. Or for that matter, if someone tells about age as an example yesterday, if you don't find more aged people in that population, then you will not know or kind of physically disabled people in that population. You will not know the special experiences that they have, the special knowledges they have, and you will still believe that your study is a very objective and a neutral study. Okay, so politics of knowledge, and there is lots of it to politics of knowledge production, and there's a whole there are debates after debates about how methods matter and what kind of methods were used, by who it was used, and etc., to produce what kind of knowledge. And that itself is kind of it's a whole course by itself. In that sense, we deal with those in our research methods courses and politics of knowledge. I just wanted to give you this idea so that tomorrow when we're doing especially nationalism, okay, you will understand that how did we understand India? Whose idea of India are we today talking of? Was India actually that? Okay, where did the knowledge systems of India vanish and why did it vanish? And why is it that today we are saying India was this? Why is it that we are talking about that three historical phases in India: ancient India, medieval India, and the modern India? And when we are talking of ancient India, we are thinking it's a Hindu India. When you are talking of medieval India, we are thinking it is a Muslim India, Mughal India, or whatever it is, Muslim invasion of India. And when we are talking of modern India, we are talking of the colonized India or the post-colonized India. Why are we not calling it as a Christian British India? So there is a whole lot of debate related to this. When we are coming to nationalism, you will understand why am I emphasizing on the idea of the knowledge production, especially, but in other units also you will understand how the methods matter, which methods produce what kind of knowledge, and how did this knowledge production influence us as an Indian society, and how today we are facing the consequences of such knowledge production, whereby the knowledge of India that should have been has never been recorded in certain ways. And the knowledge that was given to us by the British anthropologists and sociologists or the British administration or the colonizers, we are thinking that is the knowledge of India and that is what India was as a subcontinent, and we are fighting over it. And we are kind of now today ready to kind of take up arms against each other, thinking that this is what was India. But then maybe the method that was used was a problem. Maybe the method that was used produced a knowledge that was not the right knowledge, that was a biased knowledge in some ways. So this is what I wanted to talk to you in terms of politics of knowledge. I'll come to you more on it when I'm beginning the unit on caste, and I will be talking about ideological approach and book view and the field view, and I will tell you that how these approaches went to a certain kind of people to understand India, and their knowledge became the knowledge of India, and the large masses, the way they lived lives in this subcontinent, never got recorded as Indian lifestyles, Indian food habits, Indian clothing habits, Indian religious habits, or as Indian value systems. And in that process, we have got a very knowledge system that is of one particular group by for the benefit of that group, and we have missed out on a whole lot of experiences that still exist in India, and we are not ready to, in some ways, not ready to accept that this is Indian experiences, or these are Indian experiences. Any questions? Is this a little too much for you people? Are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh God, I really miss the direct classroom so much. Anyway, are you people, is it okay? Is it clear to you people?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
No questions? No comments? Hey, listen, I'm going to bully you people into talking. Maybe I'll start taking names now. Now that I don't have to remember, it's all there. Okay, in the classroom, in a direct classroom, I used to remember names and faces. Now I can just pick out from here and ask. I can just say Ankit, or I can say Arjun, or I can say Ashwin, or whoever. A is coming first, so just ask. Just what do you understand, kind of thing. Is it clear?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, for the knowledge that never got recorded, how are we even talking about it in the first place then?
Oh, who is this? Actually, I'm not able to see. I mean, can you please raise your hand when you're asking a question so that I can know your name also?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Yeah, Karan. Yeah. Because there are alternate sources of knowledge production also. Historians, there were other historians who started kind of, that is where I'll come to book view and field view. Okay. How the field view by the 1960s and 70s in India understood that the knowledge that was produced was actually a partial knowledge, was actually a biased knowledge. Okay. And went back to records and oral histories, oral histories in the sense that, many of the people in this country did not know how to write and read and write as such, but they would keep their knowledge systems intact by passing on knowledge from one generation to another through stories, through oral histories, by telling the next generation. Okay, like for example, customary laws. Okay, this is one of the example, and many of the history was recorded in people's memories rather than in documents. What happens is that we believe that documents are more objective rather than memories, but it is not necessarily so. Like for example, I asked you to go and sit in a I'll give you an example now. It's a very interesting example. Okay, I generally give this example in terms of when I'm teaching my master's class on development and gender, but I will just give you this example. There is in the 1970s, when people were writing a lot about agriculture in India, village society in India, because when the field view comes in, I'll come to field view in the next class. When the field view comes in, one of the focus was that let's go not to the books but to the field, okay, to villages in India and study villages in India, okay, and then to know kind of what Indian system, how people actually live their lives and live their lives in India. So one of the journalists, who was a very famous journalist, was writing in a daily newspaper, in an Indian daily newspaper, read by thousands and thousands of readers. Okay, in all his writings, which went on for months and months in editorial page, uh, lots of information related to village in India had come up. Okay. Now, when this journalist was being interviewed once by another journalist, he was asked this question that you have written a lot about in villages in India, agricultural aspect, political aspect, cultural, religious aspect, familial aspect, etc. But how is it that in your narration of a village in India, women are not present? You never mention women. Okay, the journalist was asked this question, and then he suddenly was silent for some time, and then he said, "I never saw them." Do you think this says a lot? It says a lot. In village in India, you will see women in agricultural fields. You will see them in near rivers and ponds and walking and get water and fuel and etc. You will see them taking care of the cattle. Okay, you will see them washing, bathing, cooking food, and you will see them in all religious functions, etc. And more importantly, in the economic system of agriculture, because women do large part of agricultural work rather than men, except plowing. Most work is done by women. How is it that this journalist never saw women? This is exactly what happened. It is not like he did not see women. He did not perceive them. And that is what sociological imagination is saying. You have to open up your eye and go beyond seeing. So when you are saying that, how, when this question is coming up, that, your question was that, that how did we then know about it when it was not recorded, right? The thing is, there was so much of knowledge production happening other than the official documentation that was happening. Okay, official documentation became the official knowledge, which went into books and history books and geography books and other kinds of book, law books, etc. The unofficial knowledge systems that was prevailing, like for example oral histories, like for example stories and songs, okay, and like for example the kind of cultural programs like the jatras and other, I don't know if you know about jatras and the local ways of drama and other kinds of things. There were people who were writing in different languages. It was not just Sanskrit or Hindi or English, okay. People were writing in different languages in different parts of this country. Not all of this was considered. So there was a whole lot of knowledge system that was existing in India, that was being recorded in different forms. But the only knowledge system that was given official importance was those produced through official sources. And that is where it all came to our mainstream colleges, schools, educational institution, legal institution, etc. And the large knowledge that was present was kind of sidelined. The administrators, the academicians, the researchers, the anthropologists, the colonizers were not ready to see them, not ready. This was seen as, oh, look, like folk tales. Folk tales tell a lot about the society, the culture, the rituals, the lifestyles of people. But folk tales were never considered for a long, long time. It was only gender studies and cultural studies and Dalit studies in India or tribal studies in India, which actually kind of emphasized that we need to take folk tales as a very, very important source of knowledge of what India was and what India is also today. And that is how Center for Folk Studies become a very integral part of university systems. And in many universities in India by 1990s, Center for Folk Studies opened up. So if I am answering your question, knowledge production was happening at different levels. Every day there is a knowledge production. When you people sit together, many people laugh at this whole idea that women gossip. Okay, it is not like men don't gossip, but the knowledge, but the entire idea is that women gossip. But do you know what this gossip is? The gossip is about knowledge being produced in terms of everyday life of women, which doesn't get recorded. If you sit at home and talk about your life, must have observed in your family, your mothers and aunts and sisters or neighbors must be sitting together and talking. What are they doing? They're not just sharing their lives, they're giving knowledges about how women's lives are or how family life is lived. Okay, they're exchanging knowledge in that process. So you won't believe one of the most interesting ways knowledge was produced regarding women's lives in India through gender studies, through women's studies or feminist studies, was by just sitting with women in villages and in cities and towns and just listening to their songs, marriage songs, ritual songs, listening to their talk, everyday talk when they are working in the or in the riverside or in the pond side or in the cattle with the cattles or in agricultural fields when they are working. What are they singing? What are they talking? What are they saying to each other? What advices are they giving to each other? This became one of the important sources of knowledge production regarding women's lives in India, and that led to lawmaking, changes and reforms in lawmaking. So, Karan, I don't know if I'm answering your question in a way that you are able to grasp it.
Yes, ma'am, totally comprehensible.
Okay, so what I'm emphasizing to the entire class is that knowledge production happens in different forums. The point is that in official statistics have a standard way of looking at how knowledges are produced, and from there we reject many different kinds of knowledge productions. Okay, that is why when I started the class, one of the things that I emphasize is that you come with your experiences to the class, I come with my experiences to the class. So our experiences will clash with each other in many ways. Okay, but one of the things that we have to remember is that when I am talking in the class, I'm talking not just based on my experiences, but I'm talking on researches after researches, studies after studies that has been done on these social processes, these social issues and problems, and social institutions, etc. For decades and decades, people have worked on this and written books on it. I am coming from there to this classroom. And that is why when we are having a debate, not only I will give importance to your experiences, your knowledge system, but you have to understand that I am coming from a much more, uh, if I can say, prepared way in terms of a more scientific, objective way, because I'm coming from a lot of studies which has been recorded over decades now, and bringing that knowledge into it. And my policy to pass it on through this course. In that sense, why am I saying this to you? It may look very awkward in this situation when I'm telling this to you. I'm telling this to you because sometimes we get into arguments where you start thinking that some students start thinking that I'm just saying things not to accept your idea, but no, I'm saying things because there are a whole lot of studies that has happened related to this, and these studies have taken knowledges not just from mainstream but from other knowledge systems, other resources of knowledge, other sources of knowledge, and from there they have written books and studies based on which I am coming to the classroom. Any other question? Okay, the next concept that I want to bring in is called. I won't go into socialization so much. You understand what is socialization. I'll come to socialization when we are doing. I mean, socialization basically is about how we were brought up, what kind of education we were given, what belief system we are given, what rituals we follow, everyday life. That the process through which we learned to be a cultural, social, political being is socialization. The process, we are born as a very physical, biological being. I can say biological more. We are born as a biological being. It is socialization, different forms of socialization that makes us a social, cultural, and a political being. For example, when you are born, you don't know that engineering is the best thing to do, okay, or IIT is the best thing to go to, okay, or when you are born you don't know that you should not be wearing pink, okay, or when you are born you don't know that you are supposed to have long hair, okay, or you're supposed to cook at by the age of 15, 16, okay. But as you are socialized into things, as you day one from day one your socialization begins, or before that maybe in some ways, but yeah, day one from socialization begins. So by the time you're 5 or 6 or 7, or by the time you're 15 or 20, you know that you should fall in love with the opposite sex and not with your own sex. You should marry within your caste and religion and not outside your caste and religion. You should grow long hair or you should not grow long hair, or you should cook at home and you should not cook at home. You should cry or not cry, okay, or you should become an engineer or a doctor and not become a sociologist, okay. So in that sense, this is what is socialization, okay. The everyday rituals, norms, values, culture within which we are brought up, within which we are taken care of, and taught and learn, within which we learn to become a social, cultural, political being is socialization. And education, religion, family, media, etc. are tools of socialization. Law, etc. are tools of socialization, and that is how you become what you are, and you believe what you are, okay, and your belief systems and everything gets done. So socialization is very easy to understand in that sense. and it has a lot of impact in the way what you become, okay, and what you present yourself to be. We'll come more into socialization when we are doing gender. So the next term that I want to just introduce is 1252. I'll just introduce, it's called the cultural hegemony. And I think this is a very, very interesting term because it will tell us that why do we agree to certain kind of thing, even if we believe that that is not the right thing to do. Or maybe, why more particularly, if I can put it, cultural hegemony will tell us, this term cultural hegemony will tell us why the powerless consent to be dominated, why the people who are oppressed, who are discriminated, who are dominated, okay, or who are subordinates, agree to be subordinated, agree to be dominated, agree with the system which makes them dominated, okay. And that is where cultural hegemony as a concept will help us understand why it is. Now, hegemony means domination. Okay, hegemony. You have the note in front of you, right? These terms are all there in the note. Okay, just look at the term cultural hegemony. Hegemony means domination. It's a Greek term. It's called domination. It means domination, and cultural hegemony is domination through culture. Okay. Now there is this Marxist, neo-Marxist intellectual called Antonio Gramsci from Italy, where he was opposing the Italian fascism. So he was put behind bars. I mean, he was in prison. When he was in prison, he wrote a series of notebooks. I mean, series of writings that he had published in the name he called them prison notebooks because he was writing it in prison and he was trying to explain this why the powerless consent to be dominated. And he was trying to say that, it is not just coercion and force. We often think that we agree to things because we will be punished, right? Why do we agree to the institutional rules? Okay, why do we come to the class? Because attendance is a way of kind of putting you in line of coming to the class, because you may like the class, you may find the teacher boring, you may not want to do the subject, you may just be you are not wanting to get out of your room and going and attending classes, but you will still come because attendance is one of the rules in which you are kind of coerced into coming to classroom one way. But also, that sometimes when you attend classes, maybe, and also kind of participate in class, your grades may be better than not attending classes or not participating in the class. So see, this is exactly where I was just giving a simple example. Gramsci is saying that in his prison notebooks, among the many things that he has written about this term cultural hegemony, where he is arguing that the question is why the powerless consent to be dominated. So he says that the powerless consent to be dominated or agree to be dominated, not because they're not because the ruling class or the powerful use always force and violence and coercion to be do on them. That is why they get like police, like riot police, okay, or for example law and punishment and prison, or for example, you are given a fine, okay, when you're driving in a car and going beyond a speed or breaking traffic rules, you're given a fine. So these are obvious forces, these are obvious coercion. Gramsci says we have to understand that ruling class is smarter than this, the powerful are smarter than this, the dominating class are smarter than this. Then do not always use force, law, coercion to kind of dominate or bring domination, bring subordination, bring agreement. But one of the most interesting tools of domination, most interesting tools of coercion is culture. And that is why he calls it cultural hegemony. He says that using through culture hegemonic ideas, when I say hegemonic ideas, or when he's saying hegemonic ideas, that means the ruling class ideas, the dominant ideas of a society, okay, the kind of the culturally powerful ideas. Gramsci is arguing that the ruling class or those in power actually use hegemonic ideas, the dominating ideas, to gain domination. He's arguing that In such ideas, there is no obvious force, obvious violence, but there is a subtle coercion. For example, and what are the tools of this coercion? Language, education, culture, morality, rituals, okay, common sense. All these are used by ruling class to kind of exert power over the dominating class, and the dominating class also agrees to this because culturally and socially they are biased into this. They are biased or kind of socialized into agreeing to it. For example, I'll just give you one thing: fate, destiny. Okay, what are these terms? Many of us who call ourselves scientific and objective and scientists and social scientists and others, okay, we believe in astrology, we believe in destiny, we believe in fate, we believe that, karma. What are these concepts? Whether karma exists or not, whether fate exists or not, whether destiny exists or not. The fact that our religion, our family, our culture has always told us that you are suffering now because of your past actions, past life's action, or you are suffering because your fate, it's in your destiny, or you are poor because it's in your destiny. Okay, this kind of fatalistic, this kind of religious ways of kind of socializing or manipulating your mind, that your poverty is not because somebody is exploiting your labor, but because you have done wrong in the past, but because your destiny is already written. God never gives you punishment without any motive. God never gives you sadness or depression or kind of, God never does you wrong because without any motive. There is a good motive to it, and you have to bear it. These are examples of cultural hegemony. Okay, I language for that matter. Okay, this whole idea of a good and a bad woman, this idea of a good and a bad child, okay, or a, this whole idea of if I don't know if in your languages there are certain kinds of language which are used for Dalit people. In Odisha, I'm from Odisha, and I also belong in some ways to through marriage to the Telugu community, and I know both these languages, and Hindi also has languages, words which are used against children or other people when parents are like, suppose it's seen as very harmless, like my parents would say that, don't behave like a mundha, or don't behave like a hadi is a lower caste, Dalit caste in Odisha. Okay, so what is this language? You may not believe in caste, you may not follow caste, you may supposedly not believe in caste, but the moment you are called a Hadi or a Mundha, Mundha is a tribe in Odisha and also other parts of India. What does this indicate to you? It indicates that you are unintelligent. It indicates that you are dirty. It indicates that you are unsophisticated. So all of our languages, I don't think there is any language in anywhere in the world which is not based on hierarchies, which is not saying something about the the dominated, the lower, the ones who are hierarchically low. It is gendered too, and I don't need to give you examples of how language is gendered. Okay, you have enough examples in any language for that matter. All your vulgar scoldings are related to women. Okay, so in that sense, that is what cultural hegemony is saying. Cultural hegemony, Gramsci is arguing that your language, your culture, your morality, your common sense, all of these forms tools in the hands of the dominated to kind of impose a way of understanding and belief system, etc., to which even the lower people who are in lower in hierarchy, the ones who are subordinates, also kind of agree to, because they are socialized into it, and therefore they do not need to kind of use force and coercion to bring domination, but through consent, through the consent of the dominated, the upper class or the ruling class or the powerful dominant. I will come to more examples of this tomorrow, and then kind of go to social capitals and finish this whole introductory lectures on concepts and go into caste as a unit. And yeah, just to close the class, I will send you links related to all these concepts today by evening, and you can go through them and kind of, you can, if you have any questions, you can write to me, and you can always ask questions now if you have time. Any questions, any comment? I will explain a little more on cultural hegemony tomorrow,
Excuse me,
and I'll
ma'am.
also tell you. Yeah,
Hello.
Ankit. Yeah.
Ma'am, I have been not added to the Teams group. Can you please add me there?
How are you attending?
Like from the link.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'll add it. Your name is Ankit. I'll do it now after this class. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. Any other questions? Any comments? I will explain cultural hegemony tomorrow a little better.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I
Yeah,
wanted to
Tatisha.
ask for the politics of knowledge production, I wanted to ask what drives the politics for the knowledge production and why?
Power. If I can answer you in one word, power, domination. Okay. Suppose I'll give you an example. Why did the Europeans think that all societies are developing towards them? Okay. The whole politics of knowledge. Okay. The Europeans, do you know that whole idea of Eurocentric idea of how societies evolved, right? They took from Darwin. Darwin said that living beings evolved into human, like today what they're human, right? From kind of, whatever chimpanzees, monkeys, etc. and all, evolution happened. The European society took, European scholars and others took that, or administrators and others took that as as a method and said that all societies in the world are developing towards, from primary societies to more developed, more complex societies like the European societies. What did they gain by that? They basically kind of using that example, they rejected all kinds of ways of a society can develop. Society can develop in thousand different ways, and the world is an example of it. African societies are example of it. South African American societies are example of it. Indian societies are example of it. Okay, there are millions of ways of in which societies can develop. But why did the Europeans think that everybody is developing towards them, and theirs is the center? That's a Eurocentric view. Theirs is the center. It's all about power and domination. It's all about putting your knowledge as the knowledge and others' knowledge as not good enough. And if you read the entire history of humankind, you will see that Europe used this whole idea of, as if they are the kind of the most developed and others are not, and to show that you are uncivilized, this whole term uncivilized. Okay, you are unsophisticated, you are uncivilized. Why? This is where cultural hegemony comes. The moment you actually start believing that we are uncivilized, as if civilization has one definition, you will understand that we give in many ways to those, because knowledge is power. I'll come to it more. Okay, it's a very interesting question, but it needs a lot of time to explain it to you. I will come to it more when I'm doing neurological approach. But remember that knowledge can be power, and knowledge has been used always to kind of dominate. Knowledge production has been in certain ways. For example, psychology. Why would psychology for years and years and years and centuries, in fact, in that sense, decades and centuries, tell that women have what is the term they used to use for women? I'm forgetting suddenly. I'm not getting the term. Schizophrenic, no. Oh, I'm not remember the name. Like suppose any woman who would question and scream and shout because of frustration is a mad woman. For centuries, for psychology, historically until today, are jump into the idea that women are mad. Okay, mad women. Those the women who are shouting and screaming, etc., and asking questions and all that, and frustration, fainting, etc., are mad women. There was some problem with women, and they were put behind in and given electric shocks to be treated. This kind of women. Okay, so why? Because it was a male dominated stream. It was looking at men and men's experiences, Male experiences are the important experience, the central experiences. Anything that doesn't fall within the experiences of men were seen as abnormal and therefore need to be treated in mental institutions. Okay, the fact that men's life conditions were so different from women's life conditions that women were not let into education, jobs, etc. They did not have property right. They did not have right over their children. They could be beaten and nothing would be done to them. Nothing, no law will come in favor of them. I'm talking of 16th, 17th centuries or 18th century. So will somebody not get suffocated and mad if somebody starts thinking? Okay, you are anyway coerced into not thinking. So then you because someone behaves like a mad person or whatever is a mad definition of mad, and not like a man who has all access to jobs, employment, tourism, clubs, etc., and all these things, right to a child, right over property, and doesn't behave like a mad person. You kind of use your power and knowledge to say that these are mad people, put them behind mental institutions. It's all about power. It's all about domination. I mean, I think we will come to it more and more as the course goes.
Yes, ma'am,
Did
I
I?
get you. Can I say one thing? Like, correct me
Yeah.
if I'm, but ma'am, as you talk about power and domination, so the feeling of superiority from my experience, where I've like noticed it like breeding the most, is I would say it breeds from the religion, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of the it's definitely one of the tools of breeding of religion has been always the center of politics, right? The center of power. Those who were closer to religion were always dominant. Religion was always like, look at Rome, look at any country for that matter. Okay, so yes, religion is one of them, but it's not all religion. So many, all of the, and yeah, I think in the next class I will emphasize on this one aspect, that is, all institutions are interrelated. No institution function without each other. They all kind of support each other's power, each other's domination, and therefore they are always interrelated and keep up the hegemony, keep up the domination. Religion is not independent of family, and family is not independent of religion. So yes, religion has been the center of so many power politics, knowledge production, everything, but it's not independent of other things. That's what Marx would say, no? Marx would say that the superstructure would consist of religion, law, education, and these are the three main tools to kind of control. You don't have to bring any kind of coercion and power and exploit. You just have to do religion and education, and so much is taken care of. You just control those two. Everything. Today's Africanization of books is happening. Why? It's just that you don't teach children what was in India. You don't teach children the pluralism of India. That's it. Children will grow up not to know it. When they don't know, what will they question? That is the thing. That's the whole politics. Yeah. Any other question? Yesterday, I think someone. Yeah. Any other question? No. Okay. Yesterday, who has asked me to discuss something? I can stay back and discuss others. If you want, you can leave. I will, Roshan. Roshan, do you want to discuss? Is it there?
Yeah, ma'am. I'm here.
Yeah, Roshan, you can see those who want to leave can leave. Okay, the class is over right now. Yeah, he has some question to ask, so we can discuss that. Roshan, you want to do it in the
Do you want me
class
to
or you
repeat
want to
the
do it one to
question?
one? Sorry?
No, we can do it here. Like,
Oh,
do you
yeah,
want me to repeat the question?
yeah, please repeat it once more.
Hello,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So,
Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. If I cut you when you were asking a question, I just had a quick thing, ma'am.